Hey guys, welcome back to the third part of the Binding of Isaac map generator tutorial. Part 1 we covered the basic map generation. Part 2 we extended that to include larger rooms. And in part 3 we will be turning them into playable rooms. Now, Binding of Isaac has a lot of complex rooms. Take this for example, which is only possible if there's a north room or a south room, and entrance from the left or right isn't possible. Now I have a solution to support this aspect of the game's design. However, to keep this tutorial simple, I will treat each room type the same, so we won't include rooms that are case specific. However, if there are people who do want to see that in the future tutorial, do let me know in the comments below. Now if you haven't watched part 1 or 2 yet, definitely check that out as we will be extending the code from those videos. The link to them will be in the description of this video and on the screen now. Before we jump into the implementation, I will do a bit of theory and explain the code and algorithm to help build an understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it, as this tutorial will be a little bit more technical. But if you want to get straight into it, then you can skip the video to this timestamp here. As always, all the code is also available on my GitHub, which you can see here, and it's linked in the description of this video. After the initial map generation is complete, the rooms will be created based on the map configuration. We'll have a pool of possible room designs like this, as well as all our door configurations like this. Now the map generator will pass through to our room generator the floor plan and cell list for the rooms to be generated. Our room generator will then loop through the cells and find the appropriate room that it needs. What it's looking for here is the room shape and the room type. Once a room is found, we will create an empty room object which can then update its design from one of the designs in the room pool. From there, the room object will loop through the cardinal directions of the current cell, which if you remember from part 1 of this tutorial series is +10, -10, +1 or -1. We then compare that value to the cell list and see if a neighbor is in that direction, and if so, we will spawn the appropriate door for that direction. For the bigger rooms, a similar process will happen, but it will ignore directions that are included within itself. For example, the 2x2 room we can think of as 4 individual cells. Each cell will try and place a door in the possible neighbor position, while simultaneously filtering their own list. In this example, cell A can ignore +1, which is right, and although a neighbor technically exists in this position, since it's part of the same cell, it will ignore that creation. Now, this process gets repeated for each room until we have a complete floor design. Now, we will extend on this in the Binding of Isaac style to support special doors on the layout, so when the algorithm is running, it will check what type of room the current cell is and what kind of room it's trying to connect to. That way, it can spawn the appropriate door in. Let's jump into Unity and pick up where we left off. First off, I have imported all my room designs into Unity like this. Please note as well that the L-shaped rooms and all the necessary rotations are actually separate into their own sprite. This way, we can avoid rotating the actual game object. I also have all the door variations like this, and for the door pivot center, I have each of them at the base of the door like this. Now before we jump into the big code change, let's first add some things to our existing scripts. Inside of our cell script, let's create 2 enums, one for our room type and one for our room shape. We will define these as follows. Then we will create a reference to the room type and room shape inside the cell class and create a public function to assign them through a parameter. We'll then create a public list of ints, which we can call our cell list. This will be the cell indexes that are attached to this cell object. Now, it's important here to ensure that we are also setting it as a new list of ints, this way it's not a null value and that we can add to it or set it when we need to. Over in our map generator script, let's first create a public int array, which we can call getFloorPlan. Using the lambda expression like this, we can direct it to the local instance of the floor plan. We'll also create a public list of cells, which we can call getSpawnCells, and using the same expression, but this time point it to our local spawn cells list. Next, near where we created our static room shape list, we'll create a public static instance of the map generator, which we can just call instance and set it in our start function like this. The next thing we want to do is call the set room types and set room shapes in the appropriate positions. In our update special room visual function, below where we set the sprite for each cell, we can also set the appropriate room types. Next, inside of spawn room, we can call set room type and also set room shape, passing in the appropriate room shapes, and also retrieve the cell list and add the current index to it. Finally, in spawn large room, in each configuration, we'll call the set room shape, passing in the appropriate shape. And at the end, we'll set the current cell's cell list to the large room indexes. We'll also use the sort function here to ensure that the values are in order. This will be useful for us later. Back inside Unity, let's create two new scripts. First, we'll create door scriptable, then room scriptable. Let's get back into our script editor and start working. Starting with our door scriptable, let's remove mono behavior and change it to scriptable object, and remove the start and update functions. We'll also add a way for us to create an instance of the scriptable object, like this. Finally, in the body of the class, we'll add 5 public variables, a room type, and 4 sprites for each direction. Let's move on to our room scriptable next. Again, we'll remove the mono behavior and change it to scriptable object, create a way to get an instance of the scriptable object, and remove the start and update functions. Inside the body of this class, we'll add a reference to the room type and room shape. Then we'll also include a public int array for occupied tiles. I'll explain how this works shortly, and we'll also want to create an array of sprites which we can call our room variations. While it's still fresh in our minds, we'll jump back into Unity and set these scriptable objects up. In our projects folder, we'll create a new folder called scriptable object. Then inside here, we'll create 2 subfolders, doors and rooms. Inside our doors folder, we'll create a first scriptable object which we can call regular doors. We'll ensure that the room type is set to regular and drag in the images for our doors that match the positions. After that, we can duplicate the doors for the other door types, so boss rooms, item rooms, and the shop. Again, ensuring that the room type is updated and that our sprites are updated with it. Jumping over to the rooms folder, we'll create our first room scriptable object. This will be our regular 1x1 room. We'll ensure that the room type is set to regular, and the room shape is set to 1x1 as well. Inside of our occupied tiles array, we'll add a single element to it, which will just be 0. Inside our room variations, we can drag in the sprite for our regular 1x1 room design. Let's duplicate this scriptable object 4 times. One for our boss room, one for our item room, one for our shop, and one for our secret room. Again, with the variations, ensure that the room type is updated for them and that the room variation sprite array has a matching room design. Next, we'll create another scriptable object for our 1x2 room, again ensuring our room type and shape is updated appropriately. And for our occupied tiles, we'll make this one 0 and 10. We'll also update the room sprites to be a part of it as well. We can duplicate this object for our 2x1 room, ensuring that our values are updated correctly, and change the occupied tiles to be 0 and 1. We can duplicate this once more for our 2x2 room, with the occupied tiles being 0, 1, 10, and 11. The L-shaped rooms are going to be where it's slightly more confusing because the room designs can be rotated. So let me quickly draw it out and explain what the occupied tiles mean. For our L-shaped rooms, we'll treat it as sort of a 2x2 room, but split it into the letters A, B, C, and D, like this. We'll have our first variation as ABC. The occupied tiles in this case will be 0, 1, and 10. The occupied tiles are laid out as either 0, 1, 9, 10, or 11, with 0 always taking priority. 9 is the odd case specifically for L-shaped rooms. The occupied tiles are used so that when the algorithm is trying to find the correct room to use, it can compare the values to the cell list of the cell that's being found. Say the cell list indexes are 35 and 36. That will correspond to a 0 and 1 value, so it would return the 2x1 room design. The next variation will be ABD, and the occupied tiles will be 0, 1, and 11. Then ACD, which will be 0, 10, and 11. And finally BCD, which is 0, 9, and 10, our only odd case. Now, with that in mind, when creating the scriptable object instances, we can refer back to the L-shaped layout here when setting the occupied tiles and the room variation design. Once we have that complete, let's create 3 new scripts. We'll create door, room, and room manager. Let's first work on door. We can remove the start and update functions and create a public sprite renderer reference. We'll create a method as well to set the sprite, which we can call setDoorSprite, ensuring there's a parameter for the sprite. Moving on to Room Manager, we'll first again remove the start and update functions and set a few variables. The first will be a private list of rooms, which we can call created rooms. Then we'll create a header for our offset variables. These will be 2 floats, one for our X offset and one for our Y offset. We'll then create another header for prefab references. We'll set a reference to our room and our door like this. Next, we can create another header for our scriptable object references. This will be our array of door scriptables, an array of room scriptables. Finally, below that, we'll create a public static room manager instance so that when we're creating our doors, we can have a way to access the prefabs. Our first method here will be the awake method, which we can set the instance to be equal to. We'll also set our created rooms equal to a new list so that it's not null and we can empty and add to it as needed. We'll create two functions here. One public function called setupRooms, passing in a list of cells, and a private bool function called doesTileMatchCell. This will have two parameters, an array of ints called occupiedTiles, and a cell reference, which we can just call cell. For now, we'll return it false. Before we write these functions, let's quickly jump back into Map Generator and create a way to call the Room Manager script. In our setup special rooms function, below the final function call here, we will call the Room Manager instance's setupRooms function, passing in our spawned cell list. Let's jump back into the Room Manager class and start writing these functions up. In setupRooms, we'll destroy any created game object like this. Then we'll clear the created rooms list. And finally, we'll loop through the spawned cells using a for each loop. We'll create a variable for our found room like this, which will cycle through our room array, finding the appropriate room shape, room type, and occupied tile state. If you have any issues with the first or default call like this, ensure that at the top of the script you have the system.link library added in. Then we'll create a vector2 for the current position, which will just be the current cell's position. Then we'll create another vector2 for our converted position, which will be the current position x and y value multiplied by the respective x and y offset. Finally, we can instantiate the room prefab like this, and add the spawned room to our created rooms list. In our doesTileMatchCell function, we'll create a way to identify if the tiles can be converted correctly to the occupied tiles array. Our first check will be if they have different sizes. If so, we can return false, it will not be a match. Now the next part is slightly complicated, so I'm going to write it out without completely explaining it, but as a general idea, it's converting the cell index to a value that can correlate to our occupied tiles indexes, which was the 0, 1, 9, 10, or 11. I'll give you a moment to copy this before moving on. Now that we have that done, we are nearly finished. We just need to work on our final script, the room. Now this one again is going to be a bit complicated, but I'll do my best to explain it as I show it. We can start by removing the start and update functions and adding in a reference to the sprite renderer. Let's also create an enum called edge direction like this. We can then set up a few functions. Our first is setupRoom, which takes in a cell and room scriptable parameter. The next function that we set up is called setup1by1, which will take in a cell, int array, and list of cells. Let's duplicate this function for all the different room types. We'll create a function called tryPlaceDoor, which takes in an int, a vector2, edge direction, int array, list of cells, and a cell. Also create a function called setupDoor, which takes in a door, an edge direction, and room type. We'll also create a function that returns a door scriptable, which we can call getDoorOptions, which takes in a room type. We'll have this return null for now. And finally, a function that will return an int called getOffset, which takes in our edge direction. For now, we'll have this return 0. Before we start filling these scripts out, we'll quickly jump back into our room manager, and inside our setupRooms function, below the instantiation of the spawned room, we'll call the setupRoom function of that room, passing in the current cell and the found room. Back in our room class, we will work on the setupRoom function. We'll set the sprite render sprite to one of the room variation design from the room scriptable like this. Below that, we'll check if the current cell is a secret room, and if so, we can ignore the door setup for that room. Next, we'll create two references, one for the floor plan like this, and one for the cell list like this. Then we can do a switch case to cycle through the current cell's room shape, and call the appropriate function depending on the shape, passing in the current cell, floor plan, and cell list into each function. Before we jump into the individual room shape setup, we'll quickly work on these other functions. In setupDoor, we'll retrieve our door types like this. Then, using another switch case, we'll cycle through the directions and call the door's setSprite, passing in the appropriate door direction. Then in our getDoors, we'll replace the null return value with this. This ensures that the door that gets returned is based on the room type so that we can get different colored doors for different rooms. Then in our get offset, above where we returned 0, we will do another switch case for the direction, returning these values based on the direction. Inside our try_place door function, we will retrieve the neighbor index like this. Then we can ensure that according to the floor plan, the neighbor index is a valid tile. If not, then we want to return out of the function and not place a door here. Then we can cycle through to find the cell in the cell list that matches the neighbor index. If it's a secret room, we also don't want to add a door connecting into it. Then we can instantiate the door on the room and offset the position using the position offset like this. Finally, we call the setup door function to ensure that the right door visual is being applied, passing in the door and direction. And with the final argument, we can use the ternary operator like this to check what type of room type we want to have applied. If our current cell is regular, then we want to use the found cell's room type, but if it's not, then we want to use its own. That way, like in the Binding of Isaac, if you're in the item room door is in the item room and in the regular room. Let's work on the actual room setup. And again, instead of typing it out, I'm going to just show the code for each function and get you to copy it. This is the code for the 1x1. This is the code for the 1x2. This is the code for the 2x1. This is the code for the 2x2, and this is the code for the L-shaped room. Again, this code is also available from my GitHub, so it might just be easier to copy and paste it directly from there. Now what these functions are doing is passing through each possible door combination according to the room, and then attempting to create the door if the room exists in the floor plan. Now this is a very important part to note, that if you notice that the doors are spawning in weird positions, you'll need to go through the code here and apply the offsets that work for your room designs. So that is all the code we're going to need for this project. Let's jump back into Unity and complete the final setup. We'll start by creating our prefabs for the door and room. We'll create an empty game object in the scene. We can call it door. We'll attach a sprite render to it, changing the sorting order to be 3. This way the doors will always render in front of the room layout. We'll then add the door script and drag in the sprite renderer into the sprite renderer component. We can create another empty game object for our room and also attach a sprite renderer to it, this time adding the room script to it and drag in the sprite renderer into the sprite renderer component here as well. We can drag both of these objects into our projects folder to create prefab instances of them, and then we can delete them from the scene. Next, in our map generator object, we can add the room generator script to it and fill out the properties there. The offset variables that work with my screen are 21.25 and 10.625. But if you notice that the rooms are too close together or too far apart, update these values accordingly. We can then drag in the room and door prefab from our projects folder. And finally, in our scriptable references, we'll add in all our doors and all our rooms. After that, we can press play and our rooms will be spawned in. And every time we press space, all the old rooms will be cleared and the new ones will be added in seamlessly. Thanks for watching the full tutorial series. If there's another series or tutorial that you would like to see me do, please let me know down in the comments or in my Discord. Now, if you enjoyed this video, liking the video and subscribing to the channel helps me out heaps and pushes my videos out to a wider audience. As always, if you have any problems or questions with this tutorial, leave a comment down below or ask me on Discord and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks again for watching and I'll catch you all next time.